Hello, welcome to The Honest Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob, and in this incredibly exciting faction preview, I've been joined by the Twitch chat where we've been deep diving into Blood and Misery, that is the Daughters of Khaine. Obviously, I mean, like, their faction lore, not to play against them or play with them. I apologize. I just want to be clear. So Daughters of Khaine are a matriarchal society led by a goddess. She wasn't always a goddess. She turned herself into a goddess by eating elven kings, Morathi. And then she literally has like her children, the Scathborn, the snake ladies, and then she's also got some old school witch elves that she brought with her from the world that was. And we have got the preview for their rules for Age of Sigmar 4. Let me know in the comments below, because I have really enjoyed all of the things that I've been reading on YouTube and what your thoughts and feelings are about these different previews. So drop them below, please. I'd love to see that. So we're going to look at these rules. First thing we're going to look at are the battle traits, and the battle traits are the rules that you have that spread across your whole army because you're playing Daughters of Khaine. So the first one that we'll talk about is the passive. So this is a passive which will continue to affect all units in your Daughters of Khaine army as the game progresses. And every battle round, you effectively get a cumulative buff where the bonuses that you got from the previous round are going to affect your army for this round as well. So they build up. So let's have a look at those. The Blood Rites. Battle round 1, you get to add 1 to run rolls for this unit. In Battle Round 2, you get to add 1 for charge rolls in this unit. In Battle Round 3, you get to add 1 to hit rolls for this unit's combat attacks. Battle Round 4, you get +1 to wound. And Battle Round 5, you add 1 to the attacks characteristic of this unit's melee weapons. So, if you do get to Battle Round 5, then you are going to have +1 attack, +1 to wound, +1 to hit, +1 to charge, which is all really beneficial. But I guess the real question people will immediately be asking themselves is, are those buffs a little bit too late? Do I really want to get those +1 attacks in round 5? I mean, of course, you're going to be happy that you've got them, but are all the interactions that are going to happen on the tabletop going to be happening in the first few rounds? Are you going to be a slower army? Are you going to be putting all of your tempo very quietly in the first few turns, just doing a couple of running on objectives, just doing some battle tactics that are non-engaging, and then committing your army later in the game, like a snake laying in wait? We'll have to see. Okay. And the other battle trait, very slim on the battle traits here, is a once per battle ability done in any combat phase, which costs a command point. And therefore, if it's done in any combat phase, it does mean it can be done in every combat phase, although specifically only your opponent's combat phase once. So you can only do this once for your whole army. And you pick a friendly Daughters of Khaine infantry unit. That's super important. So you're not going to be able to do this on Morathi, or at least big Morathi, that's in combat to use this ability. So the unit already has to be in combat. They can use 2 fight abilities this phase. After the first is used, this unit has the strike last for the rest of the turn. Now, I'm going to immediately reference how good this is, fight twice. Now you've lost shoot twice, which is good. But don't forget, there's a command ability now to shoot in your opponent's turn. So you've now got shoot twice, really. Shoot once in your turn, shoot once in their turn. And you've got an ability to fight twice as well. It feels like it's going to be really good. You're going to need an infantry unit. And can I suggest you use a bunch of fighty snakes? However, I know what you're going to say to yourself, Rob, I'm going to strike, and then they're going to hit me, I'm going to lose my unit, and I'm never going to get to use the strike last effect. Don't worry, in a previous, some cross-referencing by me in the chat, in a previous article, they've talked about what you're going to get from the unit of fighty snakes. They're called Blood Sisters. They have an ability on their war scroll called Crystal Touch. You pick an enemy unit in combat with this unit to be the target, and you roll a dice. This is going to be done in any combat phase. If the roll exceeds the target's health characteristic, the target has the strike last for the rest of the turn. Now, obviously, this is not going to be very good against like a Mega Gargant because you're never going to roll over their health characteristic. But if you're fighting units that have got like 1 or 2 wounds, you're probably going to regularly give them the strike last effect. So this does mean if this unit charges into another unit, then and you use that command ability, you're going to be able to strike because you've charged in. Then you'll strike last. But because it's your turn, you'll strike last before they strike last in the sub-phases that you get in the combat phase. So it's not as negative as it sounds, especially as there's other abilities that stack with it. I think that's quite fun. Okay, now we're going to look at battle formations. In Age of Sigmar 4, each army has got 4 battle formations on release, and they're different ways to play your army. The one that they featured is the Scath Coven, which is the speed of the Scathborn if the unmodified charge roll for friendly Melusai or Canari units is an 8+. So unmodified means you've just got to always roll an 8 or more on 2 dice. Any bonuses that you get are not going to affect it. that unit has the strike first for the rest of the turn. Don't forget, obviously, you've got countercharge, okay, as well. So if you have a countercharge, you're countercharging your opponent's turn, and then you have strike first and they don't have strike first, you're going to get to strike before them in their turn, which is going to feel wild. In addition to this, and not featured in this article, I'm probably pretty certain that you're going to get a character that's going to give out a 3d6 charge, which means a 3d6 charge, you're more likely to roll an 8+. And if you do have that, then this unit is going to, the fighty snakes especially, are going to go from strength to strength, in my personal opinion. So that's really strong. It also benefits Canari units. So melee side units, Canari units. So that's going to be your snakes, and it's going to be your harpies. Also, when you rate your army list for Age of Sigmar 4, you'll be able to choose from a spell lore, a prayer lore, and you'll also be able to pick a manifestation lore. That manifestation lore that you choose will be either some of the generic endless spells, or it will be your faction-specific incantations and arcana that you have for Daughters of Khaine. And I think, and they haven't featured them in this article, I think that this army is really going to rely on their prayer lore and also their spell lore to really improve how this army does. However, the one that they featured, Blade Wind, which is a bunch of knives flying through the air, has got 7 health and a 6-up save. And if you haven't been made aware yet, endless spells, also terrain as well, are going to be fightable, shootable, and killable. So that's a way to get rid of them, as well as being able to banish them. And you can see the banishment value for doing that there. So 7 health with a 6-up save. You've got a 6-up ward save. It's got 9 attacks that are 3s and 3s, rend 1, damage 1, and any 6s to hit are going to generate 2 extra wound dice. Well, not extra. You're going to have 2 wound dice instead of 1 wound dice if you're only 6s to hit. And they have an ability that's done in any combat phase. If this manifestation charges this turn, pick an enemy unit in combat and roll a dice on a 3+, ignore the positive modifiers to save rolls for the target for the rest of the turn. That's really good, especially when you then combo this with your double fight twice, fighty snakes that are going in. They're not going to be able to get any positive modifiers to their save roll. That feels like that's really good. Sure, it's on a 3-up, so it's not going to happen all the time. And then this thing itself can do some damage, which is nice. So I feel like that's pretty good. Now they showed off some units, and of course they had to show off Morathi. Now Morathi and the Bow Snakes has been a pretty famous combination in Age of Sigmar 4, and they have taken away her ability to shoot twice, and obviously they've put the only fight twice once per battle in your allegiance abilities. But Morathi has kept one of the core features of what makes Morathi good, is that she is unkillable. It takes a long time to kill her, basically. She has 2 different models, which you take at the same time. So this is a really flavorful and unique thing that's always been applicable to Daughters of Khaine. You have 2 models. You have a big monster Morathi, it's a big snake demon, and then you have a little wizard Morathi. That's what you have. And we're going to feature wizard Morathi first, who's got 6 health and a 5-up save, although that's not really that important, and also a 6-up ward save, and is incredibly a 3-cast wizard. She is a goddess. So let's be clear. She's a goddess that can cast 3 spells. She's also a war master. She's also unique, so you can only take one of her. But she is a 3-cast wizard and has got the passive Sorcerer Supreme, where you add 1 to the casting rolls for this unit. So 3-cast wizard that's also got +1 to cast. Feels like that's really strong. Okay. What do I mean that Morathi is unkillable? Let's talk about this. She's got a passive called 1 Soul, 2 Bodies. The effect is each time a damage point would be allocated to this unit, it is instead allocated to a friendly Shadow Queen, and you cannot make any further ward rolls for this damage point. So I make an armor. You attack the little Morathi, make an armor save, and make a ward save. I failed all those. Then boom, pass that wound onto the big monster Morathi. If this unit would be automatically destroyed by another ability, it is not automatically destroyed. Instead, allocate 3 damage points to a friendly Shadow Queen. Ward rolls cannot be made for those damage points. And if a friendly Shadow Queen is destroyed, this unit is automatically destroyed. So, let's go over and look at the Shadow Queen. The big Shadow Queen herself is 12 health with a 4-up armor save and a 6-up ward save. We'll talk about her combat profile in a minute, but seeing, as we're talking about the survivability, the big Shadow Queen has got this ability called Iron Heart of Khaine. You cannot allocate more than 3 damage points to this unit each turn. Once 3 points have been allocated to this unit this turn, any further damage points are ignored. Damage points allocated to this unit cannot be healed. And if this unit would be automatically destroyed, then it takes 3 damage instead. What this basically means is that Morathi, the combo of the little Morathi and the big Morathi, which you take together, can only ever take 3 damage per turn and can never heal. This means it's going to take at least 4 turns or 2 battle rounds for Morathi to die, assuming you can put 3 damage on them per turn. This makes it an incredibly survivable piece. In addition, Big Morathi is control value 10. So Big Morathi is going to run onto an objective, be like, this is mine, you can't kill me, I'm going to have this for a while, which is pretty good. Big Morathi is also a baller in combat. Heartrender's got 8 attacks, 3s and 3s, Rend 2, damage 3 with critical mortals. Then the Venom Tail is only 1 attack, but it's 3s and 3s, Rend 2, damage 6. And then the Crown of Serpents is just 2d6 attacks, which don't really matter. So a really good fighty piece that's effectively immortal for several turns is 12-inch move, so it's very fast, it can run up the board. And in addition to that, obviously with countercharge, you're going to be able to get into people's faces really aggressively. As if this wasn't enough, Morathi, the Big Morathi, has got a once per turn army ability, which is done in any combat phase, which means it's done in every combat phase, where you pick an enemy unit in combat with this unit to be the target, you roll a dice, you roll a d3 on a 2+, then you inflict an amount of mortal damage on the target equal to the roll. If any models are slain, for the rest of the turn, add 1 to the attacks characteristic of melee weapons used by Canari and Meliusai. So now our combo we talked about earlier, where we have a unit of 10 fighty snakes fighting twice, now they're going to have +1 attack at the same time if they combo charge with Morathi, which does mean that they're going to have +1 attack for each time they fight for additional +2 attacks. If for some reason your units are surviving into turn 5, you're also going to be able to have that +1 attack, +1 to hit, +1 to wound as well for the absolutely ultimate destruction bot. Although you would hope Morathi and also the fighty snakes aren't alive in the final turn. So very good. It's also a monster. It's also got a 6-up ward save, can also fly. All very good. And if we just quickly pop back to Morathi, the little 3-cast wizard, in addition to being a 3-cast wizard, has a unique spell, which is a 7 to cast, and you pick a friendly Shadow Queen, so that would be Big Morathi, anywhere on the board, then you basically make them swap places. If Big Morathi can't fit in the gap where Little Morathi was, I know because they're surrounded by a bunch of models or terrain or something, then you're not going to be able to do it. Otherwise, you're going to be able to swap them. And you're going to be able to swap them in and out of combat. So if you've charged Little Morathi thinking you're in a good spot here to fight her, then whoop, you're going to be able to teleport. I don't know what you're thinking, Rob, how can they teleport in my turn? Because you have a command ability to be able to teleport in your turn, in your opponent's turn. So you're going to be able to run around all the time, which is wild. Amazing. Morathi feels like she's incredibly good. Another centerpiece model, which is going to be very strong. And I'm sure people who already run this are going to be really happy. Next unit they featured are Sister Slaughter, which is 10 models in the unit. Means it can be reinforced to 20. They've got 1 health each with a 5-up save and a 6-up ward save. They've only got a control value of 1, like most infantry. So you can reinforce these ladies up to a unit of 20. In combat, because they are a combat unit, they move 6 inches, and they've got 2 attacks, 3s and 4s, no rend damage 1, but if they're fighting infantry, they do get +1 rend. So if you do reinforce this up to a unit of 20, then this does mean that you're going to have 40 attacks from this unit, rend 1 against infantry, which feels like it's quite a lot. They're also a little bit more survivable on their 5-up save, 6-up ward, thanks to being -1 to hit from combat attacks that target them, thanks to the Dance of Diversion. And they've got a Bladed Buckler's passive that if they make any 6s to save, then the unit that's fought them in combat will take a mortal damage in return. I'm not super hot on these right now. You're going to have to convince me to take these. I guess if they're cheap enough, there's lots of them, which is good. Maybe make them fight twice, I'm not sure. But there's still Witch Elves to come as well. There's probably a load of buffs we haven't seen. Pluses to the attack characteristic, pluses to wound, maybe run and charge, a bunch of other stuff. So I think that's quite interesting. And lastly, the Canari Heartrenders is a unit of 5, and they've got 2 health each with a 5-up save and a 6-up ward. They can be put into what we call deep strike. So they can basically, during the deployment phase, be put into reserve off the side, thanks to circling in the skies above. And then in your movement phase, you can deep strike them or bring them in from reserve using death from above. And that unit has to be set up anywhere on the board 9 inches from the enemy. But here where it gets super interesting, because they have a shooting attack, which is 2 shots each at 12-inch range. So when you do deep strike them, you can shoot. And those 12, that means a unit of 5 is going to do 10 shots, a unit of 10 is going to do 20 shots, hitting on a 3, wound on a 4, rend 1, damage 1 with critical auto wound. They're not great in combat with only 1 attack each, but they do have an ability called Fire and Flight. If this unit used a shoot ability this phase, this unit can move d6 inches. It cannot move into combat during any part of that move. And this is done in any shooting phase. So this does mean you're going to be able to deep strike. Then in the shooting phase, you're going to be able to shoot and use Fire and Flight, move closer, and then also charge, which is pretty spicy in my personal opinion. In your opponent's turn, you're going to be able to use the command ability to shoot, and then you're going to be able to move d6 inches away. These are going to be really great for grabbing objectives because they're control value 1, that's unit 5, just like adding to a control of an objective. Really good, in my personal opinion, for grabbing objectives, doing battle tactics at board edges, stuff like that. I think that that's very good. I think these seem really nice as well. So that's it for Daughters of Khaine. I think one of the disappointing things about this particular preview is we haven't seen where most of the kind of synergy is going to rely on, which I think is going to come from the spell laws. It's definitely going to come from the Cauldron of Blood. It's going to come from some of those foot characters. I feel like the High Gladiatrix is going to be really important. And we just got the Crone Seer released as well for Daughters of Khaine, which is a new miniature that's literally only come out in the past week or so, past couple of weeks, which also is going to really change up how, maybe that's a different centerpiece model, which is going to work really differently to how we see, the Morathi build, which looks like it's very focused around using snakes. Anyway, really interesting. Let me know what you think. I'd love to know, and I hope you've enjoyed these faction previews. Let me know in the comments below. And we do have a Patreon if you fancy joining. We've got some great faction chats where we talk about loads of stuff around these armies, and we'll be building up the hype and all of the content leaning into Age of Sigmar 4. So thanks for listening to the video, and I hope to see you soon.